Hi everyone, welcome back to Mathematics Specialist channel. This time we will continue on chapter 1, lesson 2. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, in lesson 2, we will see how the kids comparing the numbers, which earlier they already learned about number 1 until 10. Now, from the first example here, there are 4 children and also 4 apples. And they need to do the comparison by taking a line from one child to one apple. And from this case, your kids will be able to observe that every single child will have a match with one apple, which means that the number of children is the same as the number of apples. So in conclusion, you can tell them that there are as many children as apples. Now, if you look at the second case here, that there are 4 children and 3 apples, they will observe that one last child here on the right hand side doesn't have a match with an apple. Therefore, you can tell them that there are more children than apples, or there are fewer apples than children. Now, by having the understanding of the term more and fewer, then you can try to move on to the next activity that they can try to make a match by themselves. So on the next page here, your kid needs to match and compare. Then use the term more or fewer. So you can ask them to take a pencil, take a line from the butterfly to the flower, 1 on 1. So if you try to ask them to do so, they will try to draw the line from one butterfly to one flower. They can do it consecutively, just like this. And then you can tell them that basically they have more flowers than the butterfly. And then by writing the comparison, you can ask them to write down here, there are more flowers than the butterfly. Meanwhile, the butterfly is lesser than or fewer than the flower. Then you can ask them to write down on the box provided. They can start to write down fewer to represent something that has lesser number. And then if you move to the next question, they need to have the comparison between 3 things here. It's no longer only 2 different objects. So this time, you can tell them that there are cats, ducks, and also fish. You can ask them to count one by one and then write it down next to the picture. For example, for the cats, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you can ask them to write down 6 next to the cat. And then you can ask your child also to count how many ducks in here. They can count 1 and 2. And then you can write down 2 next to the picture. Do the same way to the fish. So they can count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then you can do it for the third time. Just write down 5 next to the fish. Now, if you see the question here, they need to observe and compare between cats and the fish. So if they see the numbers that there are 6 cats, meanwhile only 5 fish, meaning that you have more cats than the fish. So you can ask your child again to write it down that there are more cats than fish. Contradictorily, when they see the second question here and fill in the comparison between the ducks and the fish, literally it's only 2 ducks against 5 fishes. Therefore, you can ask them to write down the term, is it more or fewer? If they can mention that there are fewer ducks than the fish, which means that your child is already understood. So if they can proceed to the next page, okay, on the next page, there is one game that you can do with your child. So literally, this is not really important, but you can have fun with your child with this activity. Okay, the last page on lesson 2, it's basically the continuation from our first activity when the kids need to compare which one has more and which one has fewer. Therefore, in this page, they will learn on how to do the counting and comparing with the following terms: greater than and smaller than. So if they can compare between the two numbers, usually they already notice that more than is related with something greater than. So you can conclude that greater than is literally something related with the term more than. Meanwhile, if they notice that the number is less than the other number, then there will be another term which is called as smaller than. So this is referred to less than or fewer than. So then from this point onwards, you can ask your child to do the counting with your blocks while having fun. So for these blue blocks, you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you can ask your child to write it down on the provided box on the right-hand side. And then for the yellow boxes or the yellow blocks, you can ask them to count again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You can write down 8. And then next, you need to ask them to compare between 6 and 8. So which one will be greater and which one will be smaller. So they can do the counting from 1 till 10. They will notice that 6 is something smaller rather than 8. So then you can start from here, that 8 is greater than 6. And contradictorily, 6 is smaller than 8. So you can ask your child to start either from the greater than term or the smaller than term. And then if you want to test them whether they can understood or not, you can ask them to do number 4 by themselves. And then you can check the answer, whether is it correct or incorrect. So for the answers of number 4, the solutions will be 7 and 5. So 7 is greater than 5, and then 5 is smaller than 7. So this will be the end of the second lesson. So make sure that they understood the term more to be called as greater than to do the comparison. Meanwhile, something less or fewer will be referring on the term smaller than. So after this page, you can try to investigate whether your kids already understood or not by having another extra questions. Let's say you can build up your own blocks, and then after that you can ask them to count and do the comparison. Then you can ask them also to write it down on a piece of paper. By doing so, then you can proceed to the next lesson in lesson 3. So stay tuned in the mathematics channel. See you next time. Bye-bye.